We're now on lesson 1 of Illustrator CS6 Essentials. It starts on page 557. This is a good overview of Illustrator. Reset Essentials. So now we have a nice, clean, blank space to work on. Make sure that you have your lesson 1 folder from the DVD. Okay, we're going to start out creating a blank document. We go to File, New, and notice it's already set at letter. Because I want 8.5 by 11 inches. I want inches. A lot of times it'll default to points. I probably changed it to inches on my Mac. I'm on a Mac here. I'll be on a PC, of course, at school, which always... Okay. Now I'll show you up here. In Mac, Preferences is under the word Illustrator. Units, you can change units here. So often it defaults to points, at least it used to because it was so print oriented. It also defaults, I believe, to CMYK. So now I'm in points. If you're working along, there's a very easy way to change this. If you go to View Rulers, Show Rulers, notice it's in points. If you right click, it gives you the option of changing to inches or whatever else, centimeters, pixels. Often web stuff is in pixels, web programs defaults to pixels, not necessarily points or inches. So I'm going to turn off the rulers right now. I don't want to look at them, but I did want inches, hide rulers. And the first thing we're going to do over here on the left in the toolbar, now notice right here where the ellipse tool is, usually the default, if you've reset your preferences, is the rectangle. Like in most of Adobe programs, if there's a tiny arrow next to a tool, that means there's more tools behind there. And honestly, most of the tools have the tiny arrow. So we're going to get the rectangle tool, and we start in the upper left and drag a rectangle. Let's save this. Do a save as. We're going into AI01 lessons, that's what it's called. And we're going to call this AI, here's a trick, AI, I'm just going to click on one of these so some of the typing's done for me. And it should be 301, not 302. And then an underscore work. You got to be careful when you do that, though. Believe me, I've done that unwittingly and had the wrong extension, called something the wrong thing, and saved it over an existing image. But you can click these grayed out things, and that title will come up in this bar. That's not in your tutorial, by the way. So I'm going to save this. Now, Illustrator Operations comes up. This is really nice because let's say you're working with someone who doesn't have Illustrator CS6, they have Illustrator 3 or 2, or even further back. I don't know anybody that's using Illustrator 3 before the CSs came out, but you never know. So these are called legacy formats. We're just going to leave it at 6 because we all have 6. And click Save. Okay, we're going to reposition our rectangle. We're going to use the black arrow key, tool, see this here? The key, that's the shortcut, just like the move tool in Photoshop, is the V. The direct selection tool, which is the white one, is A for arrow. So V and A will probably be a couple shortcuts you'll use a lot. So we're going to reposition this into eyeball the middle here. And we're going to do some resizing. If you don't have the bounding box, all you have to do is click on it and you've got the bounding box. Your book, here you can resize it like this. It's like free transform almost in Photoshop, except when you go out here you don't get a curve. Your book doesn't say that, it says if you click the corners, I think it implies it maintains the aspect ratio, but it doesn't. You really have to hold the shift key. Like if you get a size you like, a relationship between width and height, you will have to hold the shift key to maintain what's called the aspect ratio of this box. Let's do a save. Command S on the Mac, Control S on the PC, or you can go to File, Save. Now, if you want this rectangle to be an exact size, you're going to want to use the Transform panel where you can type in dimensions. So go under Window, and this is one of the few they have it alphabetically. There it is. Here's your Transform window. And here's the X and Y coordinates, and here's the width and height. So your book wants us to, so you can see what's going on, look at how the numbers change. See how they change? Move that. So the size isn't changing now, the X and Y coordinates is changing. I like to zero out, it bases your drawing on the upper left corner. I do like to go in here to rulers, show rulers, and grab right up here in the corner and drag. See that? It's very faint, but there's like a crosshair, and I like to line up the 0 point with the upper left corner of my document. Sometimes the rulers move a little bit, sometimes they don't. And then I'm going to go back in, hide rulers. Okay, now we're going to type some numbers into the X and Y fields, which are the coordinates. We want to make sure that this is constrained width and height right here. I just want you to know that because they don't want you to have that clicked. They want it open. See, when it's open, it has these little tiny hash marks here. When it's closed, it looks like a chain link. So, but we're going to deal with the X and Y's right now. So they want us to type 2 in here, put a space between the inches, and 1 in here, which is X, Y, 2 in both X and Y. There, we moved it up there, so now it's in my way. Okay, and now they want to change the width and the height. So we want to change both of those to 1. And this is where you really don't want that chain linked. So now we have a perfect little square in the upper corner. Now there's rotating and shearing using the Transform panel. This would be rotate. See, when you hover over, and you can rotate it 60 degrees. Let's say you want to rotate it 25 degrees. If you want it to go in the other direction, let's go 64, which is counterclockwise. Clockwise, no minus. If you put a minus in, you're going counterclockwise. Now shear, on the other hand, here's shear. We'll shear it 60. Maybe we'll shear it 22. So shearing is almost like how you italicize things. Now look, when it's sheared, you can actually rotate it. Because see those little arrows? This is like free transform in Photoshop. You get those curved with an arrow, a curve line with a little arrowhead on each end, which means, oh yes, you can turn it and rotate it around like that. Make sure you save this as you go along. And we're going to get the rectangle tool and draw in another part of the our piece of paper, or this would like theoretically be your canvas or piece of paper, your drawing paper. This is your pasteboard. You can store things out here, which is a nice feature. If you want to constrain the shape from the start, I've got my rectangle tool and I'm just going to hold the shift key and have a perfect square. So you can do that too. Now let's try the same with the ellipse tool, which is, it's the same concept. You get the ellipse, you get an oval, or if you want a perfect circle, hold the shift key and you get a perfect circle. And Photoshop is the same deal, by the way. So it does matter what order you let go of the shift key. You'll find that out by trying. I'm going to do a Command S just to save this. If you want to enter in exact dimensions, you need to, okay, so I mentioned if you want to enter exact dimensions, for example, let's go to here's a star. I'm going to just go to a rectangle and click here, and there I can say I want a 3 by 3 rectangle or square. I'm going to make a star, and if I click down, this is what the radius 1 and radius 2 and the number of points are in here. If I change that according to your book, and this, I'd have to mess around with this personally if I was doing this myself. I wouldn't know exactly. And I'm going to change radius 2 to 2 inches, and I'm going to change this to 15, and we'll get like a star burst. There we go. So that is also, I'm going to go to my move this back in here. I'm going to hold down the shift key and make this a little smaller. I'm going to go to File, Save, and then I will move on to the next exercise. Okay, I have saved this and closed it. I'm putting this back. I'm not sure when I re-recorded it if I showed you what this does. I'm going to show you now. This is the shape tool, and if you click on it, see this tiny little arrow here? You can pull this out. If you pull, click on it, and you can separate it from the toolbar, and a number of the tools work that way. I wish they did in Photoshop. So we're going to move on to making some artwork. In your book, we're going to open AI 302. So let's see, File, Open, AI 302, Open. And this is so big, I'm going to double click the hand tool so it fits on screen. We've still got our rulers up. I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Command R, which is the same in Photoshop. And we're going to just put this fish back together so it looks like this. This is just an experiment with grouping and select and stuff like that. So we need to save this, the keyboard shortcut Shift Command S. I'm going Save As, which is the same in Photoshop. Save As, and I'm going to call it Work. Oops, if I could have my hands on the right keys. Work.ai. Yay! And there's our Illustrator CS6, okay? And what we really basically have to do is put all this back together. We're going to choose the black selection arrow and move this top fin. See, it's selected. I'm going to move it into place. Looks pretty good. You can always move it up and back. Let's see, if I wanted to move it a little bit left, I'm using the arrow keys now on your keyboard. You can move it in 1 pixel increments. If you hold the shift key, you can move it in 10 pixel increments. Just an FYI. Okay, we're also going to get to the direct selection tool, which is the white one, the white arrow, and it works the same in the pen tool in Photoshop, and when we get to the pen tool in here, it's the same deal. The pen tool in here I think is a little more awesome. But see, you can start to edit anchor points with the direct selection. Undo. But the one thing you'll notice is the one point that's selected is filled dark. The other points are white. So if I select this point, this is now empty, and this one's full, and this is the one I'll pull. And I'm going to undo that. That's the difference. Now the black arrow is just going to move everything. I'm going to undo that and put it back in place. I also want to talk about grouping objects. in your book, they start out by grouping two of these gills. Now, they're not grouped yet permanently. If I click off, you can still select them separately. So I'm going to hold the Shift key. They're grouped. Well, they're not grouped yet. Under Object, there's Group or Command G, Control G on the PC. So now these two are grouped. So even when I click off and click back on, they're grouped. Now I'm going to, because you can have a group within a group within a group. It can go on forever. And when you start using things like clip art that you want to use as a point of departure, if you do that, I do, then you'll find sometimes there are many groups of groups within groups, because here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to select this, 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 and this, and now I'm going to go up to Object and Group, and now they'll all move together. If I select them and ungroup, I'm going to use the keyboard shortcut Shift Command G. See, all of these are individuals now, but these two are still grouped because they were a group within a group. Kind of like nesting. You'll hear that term as you move along if you get into, well, we nest in Photoshop. We do some nesting with smart objects and groups. And we do nesting in here and in After Effects. So there's a lot of nesting going on. But I'm going to turn this back into one old big group. Command G, Control G on the PC. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Escape. Escape? No, won't do it. I just have to undo. Okay, what I accidentally did is I selected this along with these. So I just want these selected, and I'm going to bring them in. Now I'm going to look at my fish on the top so I can mimic my fish on the bottom. And basically, we're going to just put this little fish back together. There's that. And notice all of these objects could be drawn in Illustrator. This is a great program. If you like to draw, if drawing's your thing, a lot of people who are into illustration and drawing seem to take to Illustrator more than people who aren't as into drawing. I have a friend who got an AA in landscape architecture, and he loves Illustrator. It's always a big argument which is a better program, but it really depends on what you want to do. I'm going to move this up here. Let me see. Is that right? A little further back. And then this one here. So there's the fin. And then, the tail. And now if I just select everything and go up to Object Group, now I don't have to worry. Now, I see I want to put the eyeball up here. So what I'll do is I'll select them all. I will ungroup. And I'll move this little eyeball part, iris part, or whatever it is, there. Okay, that's more like that one. And then I'm going to regroup it. When I work with Illustrator, I use grouping a lot because that way things don't get out of control. So, let's save this. Oh, I already did, because that's why I got that little beeping, or obnoxious beeping. I'm going to close this, and we're going to move on to the next exercise. Now we're going to use Shape and Transform to create artwork. So we're going to open file AI303. I'm going to use Command O for open. You can use Control O. Well, they want us to look at the done one first. So let's open this. That's not a bad idea. That's the done one. So that's what we're going to be making, is something like that. Let me double click the hand tool because it fits it to screen. This makes it 100%, the magnifying glass. Same in Photoshop. Sometimes you like one, sometimes you don't like the other. Sometimes you need one, not the other. Okay. So now I'm going to open 303. Is it 303? Yeah, it's 303. And there's nothing except guides. So this is pretty cool, actually, this lesson, I have to say. I'm going to bring it into the middle of the screen so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to underscore this with work. There we go. All right, so I've got that saved. We're going to use the transform tools. Okay, let's go ahead and click and hold the star tool and get the rounded rectangle. And we're going to click over here and drag a rounded rectangle between these guides. We're going to add a fill color. We're going to add CMYK blue. We're going to add it from up here. And if you hover over, this is, see if you hover over some of them give you the call out numbers, but this is CMYK blue. But what we're going to do right now is we're going to lock this down. So object, oh, I have to select it, sorry. Go to the black arrow, select it, object, lock, selection. Okay, so we've got it locked, and now we're going to make a shape that we're going to modify. So from that list where the now rounded rectangle is in front, we're going to get the polygon tool. So here's the polygon tool, and we're going to click out here so we get the menu that gives us some choices. And I had already done this, and I think your book says type in 3 sides. So I typed in 50 is what they said the radius was, and 3. So there's our triangle, and we're going to alter the size of this triangle. Okay, I made the triangle 0.5 inches by 2 inches. Then we have to go, it defaulted to black stroke and white fill. I'm sorry, it had a blue fill because of the rectangle. So I moved it so it was in the center of the rectangle. Now I'm going to change it. I was in outline view because I couldn't see the white triangle, so I had to move. You have to be, it gets a little tricky. Sometimes it kept wanting to move the guide with it. So I now have it in the right place, and I'm going to have to rotate it. And there's this really cool, let's see, preview view, this really cool way that you can rotate something in Illustrator. What you're going to need to do is option click, let's see here, with the option click here at the tip, because that's where you want the rotation to happen. If you're on a PC, it'll be alt click. And we want to go to the rotation tool now. Double click the rotation tool. Put 18 degrees in, which is already in there. And we're going to, I believe, 18 degrees divides 360 evenly. Make sure you press copy in here. Then we're going to go Command or Control D, Command 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 D, woohoo, till we get it all filled. And because the bottom is locked, I can just take my black arrow and group these things together. Command G, Control G on the PC. And then we're going to go up and change the opacity to 50%. And then we have the background, which is very cool. And I believe we'll move on to the next step. And then we're going to move on to bringing up the layers panel. Oh, how come that's over there? Layers, I think, has the same icon. Let me close this. Here it is, as it does in Photoshop. Here's layers. I'm going to, I believe I can probably click on, no, not the same as Photoshop. Panel options. I just want the thumbnails larger so that you can see it. Well, actually, I can make them even larger in Illustrator, which is kind of cool. Let's see, panel options, other, 20 pixels, let's make it 40 pixels. We don't use that many layers in this exercise. So we're bringing up the layers panel and we're going to lock the background. The way you lock the background is in this empty space between the eyeball. Here's an empty space and here's your layer. So I'm going to lock it. So now it won't move accidentally. The next thing we're going to do is create a new blank layer. You can create it from here, and I believe you can new layer from here. So I'm creating a new blank layer, and I'm going to call it fish. So there's my new blank layer. Now I'm going to open, where's that open? There it is, 304, because that's got the fishes in it. There we go. And for some reason, they want us to do a cut rather than a copy, and maybe just so you can learn cut. But cut, where copy is Command C, cut is Command X. We won't save it like this because then we'd save it over our original fish. Oops, that's the done one. And here we are, and we're going to paste it. So now those fish are pasted on a different layer, and we have to reposition them and make the bubbles. So they aren't grouped together. I just cut them together. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to take the small fish, which clearly is already grouped, and move it up here. And that's not really how they want it. They want the small fish in front of the big fish. So what we're going to do is go to Window. We are going to go to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. So now the little fish is in front of the big fish. I also want to bring these little fishies down a little bit into the frame, more like it looks like in your book. And I think it might be a good idea for us to do a save. Now, I want you to notice something. There's a little asterisk right here. That tells you you've done something but haven't saved it. So I'm going to save it. And now we're going to create our bubbles. Okay, so here we go. We get the ellipse tool. There it is. And I'm going to start here. I'm going to shift and put a color. I think it's cyan. Yeah, that's the color they want. Cyan. Now we need one that has a little white spot on it. So we're going to make one while I'm not anymore in the ellipse. I'm just going to go to the ellipse, click, and it should be 0.1, 0.1, which I already have because I've done this. And this time we're going to change the color to white. So I'm going to hit D, and then I'm going to go over here and just say, don't give me a stroke. I'm going to go to my black move tool and move this over here. So now I have my bubble. I am going to group this because I don't want them any different. So I'm going to go Command G, and then I'm going to make 3 more bubbles. I'm going to hold the Option key to get those double arrows. There's 2, there's 3, and there's 4. I'm just going to eyeball them and resize them so that they're different sizes. I'm going to leave this one big. I'm going to take this one. I'm going to hold the Shift key and go down just a little bit. This one I'm going to go down a little bit more. And this one I'm going to go down even a little bit more. So now I have 4 bubbles that are 4 different sizes. I'm going to add my bubbles to the picture. So there's my bubbles in the picture. I'm going to save now that we've gotten this far. And save it. And now we're going to talk a little bit about moving things from layer to layer. So we're looking, here's the layers panel, which we have kept visible. And if you notice, there's this dot here. This dot indicates selected art. Right now it's just the bubble that's selected. So what you can do, what this exercise is about, is we're going to just select all the bubbles and drag them down to the, oh, we have to unlock this layer. Drag them down to this layer. So if you turn off the fish, the bubbles are on the background layer. So that's how you move things from layer to layer. That's one of the ways in Illustrator. The thing we're going to do with this little darling is we're going to click on the triangles. Now the triangles are grouped together. So we are going to, they should be grouped together. Why aren't they? Didn't I group them together? That was a mistake if I didn't. Click, hold the shift key, click, 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 click. That's weird. Okay, well, I'm not redoing this, I'll tell you that. I'll do it, click, 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 click. You can do it after the fact, it's just easier. I don't know. Click, click. And now I'm going to Command G, and I am going to move, I'm going to arrange under Object, bring to front, and notice these low opacity triangles go over the bubbles. So that's a way to get an effect. And that's basically the last project in this lesson 1. And we covered a lot of stuff.